just for fun, I asked ChatGPT what to invoke Tommy Douglas and what would ChatGPT think that Tommy Douglas would say. And actually, very very similar to what you talked about. There's two things from a disappointment perspective that ChatGPT brought up, and I actually want to interesting to get your perspective on it. And I can kind of see why ChatGPT would say that Tommy Douglas would say this, but okay, I'll say the first one that
Okay.
that you didn't highlight was persistent health inequities, the one specific around Indigenous people. So that this was something that ChatGPT said that Tommy Douglas would believe that this is a huge disappointment to him, and I think it probably stems from he was actually very very progressive for from a certain perspective. He was incredibly progressive, right ahead of his time. I think Saskatchewan was one of the first places to almost like introduce a Bill of Human Rights. Am I correct about that? So,
Yes.
do you think that that was something that Tommy Douglas would say? This idea of health inequities would be something that he would be highly disappointed in.
Yes, he would be. The reason I didn't raise it was because it's what he saw in his day, and I know this isn't going to be a popular thing to say, but what he saw in his day were even greater health inequities than what we face today. Remember, he was coming out of the Great Depression, and the gaps at that time were absolutely enormous. And there was virtually no safety net. So, as he lived and experienced as a politician and as a government leader, and then as an opposition politician in Ottawa in the 1960s and 1970s, he saw some of these things being addressed very effectively through government policy. And even if it was opposition parties that he criticized, they built up the welfare state in the way that he'd hoped to. And of course, he wanted to go further. He wanted the safety net to be larger, to be deeper, but they were going in the right direction, right? So I think by the time he died in 1986, he felt it was still going largely in the right direction. Um, Now, it wouldn't take very much longer before the 1990s came along, and all of a sudden, once again, the gap or the inequities began to grow. Now, I'm talking about the general population as a whole. Let's talk about marginalized populations. Let's talk about Indigenous people. There, he would have made the point that we needed to do more, and he did in the last 20 years of his life make this point quite often, that this was something that needed to be addressed and needed to be a priority for Canadians. He did not see, though, this issue through a cultural lens. He saw it through an anti-poverty lens. And in that sense, he might be a little different than people today and their arguments about First Nations, self-government, etc., because I think he always saw this as a problem of poverty in education as opposed to a problem of cultural isolation and sort of historic wrongs.
Great, great. Spoken like I think a true historian, whereas I think ChatGPT didn't take that approach. I think on one of your podcasts recently with, or it might not have been actually that recent, with former colleague Patrice Dutil, the way that he verbalized what a historian does versus a journalist is it was quite succinct, and I thought it was quite incredible. He said that historian, they put the individual or the situation into context of that time, and that's what you're doing here, whereas it seems like ChatGPT just didn't do that. It took a more of a journalistic view on it, maybe.
Well, I think that that's the problem with artificial intelligence, though. It can only be present minded, right? The historical judgment is something that is unique to human beings. I doubt that we could ever use artificial intelligence to mimic that. Maybe I'm wrong, because artificial intelligence can do things today that I never thought would be possible. So I could be very wrong. It might be able to have that kind of historical depth at some point. But
Absolutely.
for my sake, I hope not. As a historian, I hope there's still some human agency in all of this.
Absolutely. No, myself as well. I think all of us think, oh, can it replace all the work that we do? And I think I'm on the side of, like, we'll always have a place. I mean, as long as there's creativity, there's problems to solve. I think we'll always have sort of a unique perspective on how to actually solve that problem from a humanity's perspective.